4 a.m., July 6, 1892. Two barges moving silently up the Monongahela River in the darkness. On board, 300 Pinkerton agents, armed with Winchester repeating rifles. On the riverbank, thousands of steelworkers and their families, waiting, armed with anything they could find. Civil War rifles, clubs, and old cannon. The most powerful steel company in America had just declared war on its own workers. What happened next, on the banks of the Monongahela, was not a labor dispute. It was a battle. And the man who ordered it was 3,000 miles away, in his castle in Scotland. We covered Andrew Carnegie in video 11, the boy who arrived from Scotland at 13 with nothing, who built Carnegie Steel into the largest steel producer in the world, who sold it to J.P. Morgan for $480 million in 1901. What we didn't tell you was Homestead, because Carnegie was a contradiction that the history books have never fully resolved. He publicly supported labor. He wrote essays defending workers' right to unionize. He built over 2,500 public libraries. Carnegie had worked his way up from his poor childhood in Scotland to become one of the wealthiest and most powerful industrialists in the United States, a leading philanthropist who voiced public support for labor causes, including the right of workers to unionize. And then he gave his operations manager, Henry Clay Frick, carte blanche to break the union, and left for Scotland. If this story is hitting the way we think it is, hit the like button. It helps more people find Vault and Ruin. And this is exactly the kind of story more people need to hear. Henry Clay Frick was everything Carnegie pretended not to be. Openly, aggressively, unapologetically anti-union. Carnegie gave Frick carte blanche to break the union ahead of the contract deadline. Frick opened his campaign with wage cuts. The Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers, one of the strongest unions in America, rejected them. Frick responded by locking the workers out and building a massive barbed wire-topped fence around the plant. The workers called it Fort Frick. On July 2nd, Frick fired all 3,800 workers. Then he hired 300 Pinkerton agents from New York and Chicago and sent them up the Monongahela River in 2 barges at 4 a.m. As the barges came into sight, they were greeted with a barrage of gunfire and stones hurled through the air. Nearly 10,000 men, women, and children gathered on the riverbanks, armed with anything they could find. Some carried firearms dating from the Civil War. Many others grabbed anything they could find: sticks, stones, even clubs made from boards pried from fences. The Pinkertons returned fire with their Winchester rifles. The battle raged for 14 hours on the banks of the Monongahela River. At the end of the battle between the Pinkertons and nearly the entire town, 7 workers and 3 Pinkertons were dead. The Pinkertons raised white flags, multiple times. The workers finally accepted their surrender by early evening. A crowd of men, women, and children brutally beat the Pinkertons who came ashore after their surrender. Then Pennsylvania Governor Patterson ordered the state militia to Homestead. The militia under Major General George R. Snowden arrived on July 12th, surrounded the plant, and dispersed the strikers. 8,500 National Guard troops to do what 300 Pinkertons could not. Where was Andrew Carnegie during all of this? Frick was manager of the Carnegie Steel Works, while Andrew Carnegie was on vacation in Scotland, at Skibo Castle, his private estate in the Scottish Highlands. He received telegrams about the battle. He sent one back expressing support for Frick's actions. Publicly, Carnegie said nothing. He claimed the matter was entirely in Frick's hands. The man who had written essays defending workers' rights to unionize stayed in his Scottish castle while his workers died on the Monongahela riverbank. When journalists tracked him down, he refused to comment. Frick later said that Carnegie had been kept fully informed throughout. Carnegie denied it for the rest of his life. 2 weeks after the battle on the Monongahela, a young anarchist named Alexander Berkman walked into Henry Clay Frick's Pittsburgh office. Berkman rushed in, drew a .38 caliber revolver, and fired 2 quick shots right at Frick, point blank. The first shot hit Frick in the shoulder, the second in the neck. As Frick's associates wrestled Berkman to the ground, he fired a third time, hitting the ceiling. Berkman reached for the dagger in his pocket and struck at Frick's legs. Frick was shot twice and stabbed 3 times. He refused to go to hospital until he had finished the day's work. Frick was described in the press as the most hated man in America. He lived to be 70. Berkman served 14 years in prison. But the assassination attempt, which had been intended to ignite a workers' uprising, did the opposite. The attack created negative publicity that helped force the strike's collapse, with some 2,500 men losing their jobs and the rest having their wages cut in half. Berkman's bullet, meant to save the Union, helped destroy it. By November 1892, the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers had collapsed. Frick had won. Frick announced, "Under no circumstances will we have any further dealing with the Amalgamated Association as an organization. This is final." The daily wages of the highly skilled workers at Homestead shrunk by 1/5 between 1892 and 1907, while their work shifts increased from 8 hours to 12 hours. The men who had fought on the Monongahela Riverbank, who had beaten back 300 Pinkerton agents, returned to work on Carnegie's terms. Less pay, longer hours, no union. Carnegie Steel, freed from the Union, went on to dominate American steel production for the next decade. Carnegie's annual profits, already an unheard-of $4.5 million, climbed higher every year. And Carnegie went back to building libraries. Andrew Carnegie spent the last 18 years of his life giving his fortune away. Over $350 million. Libraries, universities, concert halls, peace institutes, Carnegie Hall in New York, Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, the most celebrated philanthropist in American history. And in Homestead, 7 workers buried in graves they died defending their right to a living wage. The bloody confrontation that occurred in Homestead, Pennsylvania, on July 6, 1892, was one of the pivotal moments in American labor history. It proved the lengths that workers would go to in order to defend their livelihood, and the lengths to which owners would go to retain absolute control. Carnegie understood this better than anyone. He never returned to Homestead. He never publicly acknowledged what happened there. He spent his final years building the institutions that bear his name. The workers who built his fortune built none of them. The Homestead Pump House, the last remaining building of the Carnegie Steel Works, still stands on the banks of the Monongahela River. It operates as a museum. The workers who died there are remembered on a plaque outside. Their union never recovered. American steel remained non-union until the 1930s. 40 years after Homestead, and the man who bought Carnegie's steel empire in 1901, J.P. Morgan, used it as the foundation for an even more audacious act of financial power. That same year, 1901, Morgan and his rivals fought for control of the Northern Pacific Railroad, 2 sides buying stock simultaneously, driving the price from $112 to $1,000 in a single morning. The entire stock market collapsing in the crossfire, and ordinary investors, caught between 2 titans, destroyed in hours. The vault gets richer, and somewhere, always somewhere, something else is burning. Subscribe to Vault and Ruin. We go where the money went.